Hello, everyone. Welcome back to yet another episode of the Forever Forward podcast. And if you are still grappling with the name change, we've sort of changed the name of the podcast from Facility Management Times to Forever Forward. We thought that we had to broaden our horizon beyond facilities management, and that is precisely why I have Zul with me as today's guest. Hey, Zul, lovely to have you with us. Would you like to say hello to
Yeah,
the
yeah.
listeners?
Yep. Hello, everyone. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you very much to Umesh for arrange the session with me. And then it's been a lot of discussion in this space recently for me myself, and I'm really happy to be here. Thank you very much, Umesh.
Perfect. I mean, absolutely a pleasure to have you, and we are absolutely aware of the fact that how popular you are in your country when it comes to the topic around what we have. So, for the benefit of the listeners, I mean, we're going to talk about the state of enterprise asset management or asset operations and maintenance,
Mhm.
facilities management, kind of the intersection of all of that with Zul.
Yeah.
Zul is co-founder of Fox Facility Solutions. Basically, it's a CMMS. He runs a consulting company as well, Infinity Wave. He's very popular. He's a thought leader in the space in the country. But I think what I was particularly very excited about when I first spoke to Zul was the fact that his growth from being a practitioner to then starting to look at how technology can assist the people, and which I think is one of the most important aspects of how we connected as founders,
Mhm.
right? But I think before we progress, Zul, why don't you give everyone a brief introduction of all that you've been doing and your career so far?
Mhm. Yeah. Thanks. I mean, I've been like at around 15 years of experience in this space. So I've been going from one company to another, but stick to the areas of facility automations, R&D, strategic planning of facility management, and even running the facility myself with bunch of people.
Hmm.
So also got involved with construction, and I got to see a wide range of perspective from those areas, whether you want to make an improvement in terms of automation of facilities, running it for FM, and construct the building itself. So it's a bit big opportunity for me. I'm a bit lucky to have experienced all of this, and currently I'm running Infinity Wave, which
Hmm.
help a lot of organizations, even some government agencies that
Hmm.
we collaborate with
Hmm.
to help them to go through with their journey for digital transformation. So our areas is a lot on built environment and
Hmm.
how technology can actually be adopted in more efficient, productive ways.
Hmm.
So that's a bit of a summary what I have been doing
Perfect.
and done.
No, perfect. So we look forward to the conversation. So I think we'll get started. I mean, that's obviously a remarkable journey so far, and I'm sure the best is yet to come. Uh, uh, but help us understand what's the a long time back I did a podcast which was called State of Facilities Management in Southeast
Mm,
Asia, right? But then I realized that, and as we were talking with my co-host JJ while he was with OCS there, PCS as it's known in Thailand. Is that every country is very different. We sort of bring them into one umbrella and say Southeast Asia, where I'm saying
mm.
Singapore is very different to Indonesia, to very different to Malaysia. So, what do you think is the current state of asset operations maintenance in Malaysia?
Mhm.
Firstly, you may want to share an overall perspective, and then maybe zero down on built environment.
Yep, yep. Okay, I think for the past about 20 years or so, Malaysia has been developing a lot in that areas. The FM itself, facility management, has been
Mm,
recognized by the government and a lot of organization nowadays. It started back in I think late 90s where FM
mm,
already established. And one of the key reason for this is the privatization of hospital maintenance in
mm,
Malaysia.
mm,
So I think the previous Prime Minister of Malaysia mentioned that we need to do a lot more for facilities and building.
mm.
And we cannot really have first class infrastructure with third world country mentality. That's a bit controversial for him to say that, but it's kind of struck the
Makes
right
sense.
button. Yeah,
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
struck a lot of button to a lot of people and stakeholders. That's
Mm,
when you can see a lot of organizations like MEFM,
mm,
uh, organization like NAFAM, MACMA, they are in that space
mm,
on their own, but working on their own effort to improve things around. So
mm,
there's a lot of areas to be improved on because
mm,
we started off with upkeep and maintenance of building. So that's a
mm,
bit
mm, mm,
uh, things
mm,
behind the scene, and it's not
mm,
really
mm,
glamorous, and people normally neglected it. So I just got back from the FMHC conference recently, and there's a lot of discussion made currently on how to actually move the industry forward. And we
mm,
are looking into technology adoption, some transformation in terms of organization structure. Even we are talking about the structure of the procurement itself in,
mm, mm,
for example, government space where they are one of the largest, if not the largest, asset owners in Malaysia. So there's a lot going on, and I'm also personally involved with one of the local university to be
mm,
their advisor into this space. They are currently trying to introduce a facility maintenance engineering course, which is
mm,
quite new, and intersection, I would say, between mechanical, civil, electrical, and a little bit of electronic, which is not being done before in Malaysia because we were traditionally known as mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, or civil engineers. So by having this facility maintenance engineer, you can see that these graduates can actually look into the areas of facility itself rather than stick to their one conventional engineering courses. So there's
mm.
a lot of going on, and it's a bit
What
interesting.
one recommendation include the basics of data skills as well over there, because I think that's going to be
Mm.
the fundamentally the
Mhm.
most important thing.
Correct.
So that's just one
Correct.
recommendation. I'm glad to hear that
Yeah. Yeah.
that's happening. But tell us more about what kind of an adoption has been there in terms of, let's say, because when you
Mhm.
look at technology, the most basic software that the adoption that should be there is like a CMMS stroke CAFM. I know they both are very
Mhm.
different but kind of interchangeably used. So and so what
Yeah.
percentage adoption is there? I mean, or
Yeah.
in Malaysia right now?
Okay. This is quite interesting because I presented a paper recently also on technology adoption among facility managers. And one of the participants actually pointed out the list of technology that I presented in my paper actually is not half, even half available in the market. So this is a bit, I mean, I don't take offense on the comments and the question posted. He's actually one of the professor in local university. So
Hmm.
I told him basically we got tangled up and confused by the commercial names posed by the vendors because they
Hmm.
wanted to push their unique selling proposition
Hmm.
into specific name when it's actually a CMMS, a
Hmm.
BIM, and so on.
Hmm.
So by having a good understanding about the technology areas and key areas of FM implementation is good.
Hmm.
This is where Malaysia should do a lot more in this area because there's a lot of trending coming in about BIM, but and a lot of players actually realize and they kind of agree that it's not really useful for them to adopt certain technology because it's trending, and they wanted to go back into the areas that actually meant something for them and make impactful change. For example, I want
Hmm.
to have like information management better for my facility and what are the areas that I can improve on. It
Hmm.
does not necessarily be BIM. So they kind of understand that. So this is where the conversation began. You need to have like basic fundamental understanding about the areas of technology.
But where is Malaysia right now? So, for example, if we were to
Yeah.
say, I absolutely agree with you. By the way, when you
Mm.
say there are a lot of no, names come out, and again, we were talking offline that they
Mm-hmm.
are themes which either the marketing folks take out or the venture capital folk takes out,
Mm-hmm.
someone takes out, and that theme runs for some time, and then you bring some other theme.
Yeah.
But again, when you look at if you look at a CMMS or a CAFM, again interchangeably being used over here, is kind of the basic where you need that software to sort of operate and run your assets and
Mm-hmm.
manage the facilities, versus you could do it on paper. But how much of that is happening? What percentage adoption
Yeah.
do we have in
Um,
Malaysia?
the survey around 150 facility managers in Malaysia is around, we can say that from 4 stages of technology adoption will be early majority, which is quite low actually. It's around
Okay.
54 to 60%.
Okay. Okay.
Mm.
Okay. And is that have you seen that changing now recently? And if yes, then what are
Mhm.
the drivers that are making that change?
Yeah. Okay. There are some movement changes, and then some change in terms of understanding mentality, and they wanted to have a good balance between investment and, okay, the return from it. This
Mm,
is where it's coming into for Malaysia industry. They
mm,
have a good and better understanding into the balance of return on investment and the investment need. So
mm,
we are going into that area, and
mm,
the areas that we are going into is really good because when the stakeholders, the key decision makers are going into that space,
mm,
they wanted to know more how to make it more efficient, and they can actually understand what are the return of investment, not really restricted to monetary,
mm,
but also the soft return that, like I said, mentioned in the conference,
mm,
the balance of your work and life,
mm,
and the stress handled by the facility team, of course. So those
mm,
are the things that being talked about now, which is really interesting and good.
mm. And I mean, globally we are seeing it. So before I actually come to this question, now, when you look at Southeast Asia as a cluster, you see Singapore sort of slightly as
Yeah.
uh, I don't know whether you would want to call IT as the head, but
Yeah.
it's that
Perfect.
country,
Yeah.
it's that country that one always wants to benchmark
Mm.
against. Where would you see the state of FM asset management in context to where it is in Singapore?
I mean, Southeast Asia is a bit diverse. There's a lot of
It's like very diverse, not
yeah,
a bit
very,
diverse, very
very
diverse.
diverse. Politically, the people in
I
that
think
specific region, yeah, culturally, yeah.
yeah, absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
geographically, in terms of geographically, and then how the built environment space grow itself is a
True,
big
true,
influence in that.
true.
So I cannot really compare apple to apple between Malaysia and Singapore, but in terms, I mean, economically, we know how Singapore grows
Makes
and the
sense.
areas, yeah.
Mm, mm.
So it's a bit, I mean, it's a bit unfair actually to compare
Makes sense. Makes
both
sense.
sides. But I
Makes
can I
sense.
can see that the industry in Malaysia is really growing positively.
Which is
People
good.
now people now taking more participation into that area where they wanted to have difficult conversation, even the
Yeah.
government agencies.
Mm,
So we
mm,
want to change this. So
mm.
and people respond to it. So this is where I think
It's
is an
a welcome
interesting time.
change.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
mm, mm, mm. Well, that's interesting. So I think probably leads me to the next question, which I had for you, is that globally, when like we work with FM companies largely across Middle East, UK, Australia,
Mm,
and there's a huge focus on being able to move to data driven maintenance now, which is
mhm.
you can't do that overnight, and there's a lot of process.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's not just tools that can help you get there. As I think you mentioned earlier, organizational and cultural change within FM also needs to happen to be able to get
Mhm.
there, and plus contracts and others. But are you
Yeah.
seeing that happen in Malaysia as well now? Some marquee FM companies or marquee asset owners saying that,
Mhm.
hey, we do want to change the way we are maintaining, operating, and
Mhm.
maintaining the assets.
It is, it is. It's definitely happening now. There's a lot of companies now talking about data gathering, data management. They
Mm,
wanted to know more. So
mm,
the conversation that we have now is much more better than I can say 5, 10 years ago, where we
mm,
still talking about what's the difference between building maintenance and FM.
mm,
Now we're talking into the space of how actually my data can benefit my operation.
mm.
And there's a lot of conversation also. I don't want to put 1,000 sensors that collect millions of data, but useless. This is the conversation that we have now. It's really great because people now start to wonder where and why and how.
So they're more
So,
aware,
yeah,
and they're more aware about everything, and
correct.
obviously more
Yes,
thoughtful.
correct.
That makes sense. That
Mhm.
makes sense.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Now, just so if the change is really happening or people are talking about it, who is making that change happen or talk conversation happen? Is it more from the private facility management players, like whether it's in-house or outsourced, or is it the asset owners who are saying that, hey, this needs to happen? Or as we mostly see, it's like people like us talking about it. So what's happening in Malaysia?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because this is happened in recent conference also. There was a question posed by the participant to one of the key government officer about value add in the contract. And this person mentioned specifically about technology adoption. So government need to realize and recognize actually the innovation part, technology that they being introduced into the contract and add it into an extra points. He said so that we can go into more innovative solution rather than specific upkeeping, doing this, removing this and cleaning this. So your question about who should be be responsible.
Who should make the move
Yeah,
versus being
who
responsible?
should okay.
Everyone's responsible, by the way. Yeah.
Correct. So now the industry is starting to making a big noise into this. They wanted to, okay, let's push this to the asset owner, which is government and private also. So by having this, I would say consensus among the players, people like us, it's a big drive for asset owners now to think about, oh, okay, actually I can benefit from this. This is what they want, not only benefiting them, but us as asset owner. So it's interesting because the conversation now is not really behind the scene, it's really open and transparent.
Wonderful. That's wonderful.
Yes, yes.
That's wonderful. I mean, and again, just on, so it's a wonderful that conversation is happening. I mean, one would like to believe that India being probably, I mean, I don't want to go into where India and Malaysia are economically because I'm probably not the best of judge there. But one of the things is like we wish that those conversations happen in India. I don't think they're happening to a very large extent. So I mean, in that say what you're saying, probably in that case, Malaysia definitely seems to have have taken. I mean, I mean, again, the problem is not that the conversations aren't happening. I mean, everyone talks in conferences, but the real problem I see as well is the fact that you may add a line item in the contract which says you will have brownie points for innovation, but by the way, you still need to give 100 people for the job. You still need to maintain the asset every month, every 3 months, every 6 months. Then there's a mismatch that happens. That while you want the technology to be brought in, but then you are not allowing technology to really change any of that. But again, great that conversation is happening. I think we should definitely check with you in 6 months' time to see how things have gone in that sense. Apart from built environment, what other industries or segments are really looking at changing asset sort of the entire operations and maintenance landscape? I'm sure that
I mean, from my limited knowledge on other industries, of course, we've been engaging energy companies, oil and gas, manufacturing plants, of course. They are always on P&L driven. They wanted to go into that specific area where really efficient operation. So those are the areas that we are engaging at this point of time. Not much that I can say on other areas, but we are looking
that's
into
a fairly good
that,
spectrum. With a fairly good spectrum in that sense. And also one thing, I mean, like has the energy prices in Malaysia really skyrocketed as they've been in UK and Europe? I mean, has there been any impact on that in Malaysia?
It does not really impacted much at this point in time, but there's a lot of conversation being it happened to discuss about prices and so on, but I don't want don't want to go into that area.
No, but as of now, there has not been like, because when like I was in UK a week back and spent a couple of weeks there meeting prospects and customers. I think one of the major drivers that's actually getting people to focus on digital technology is the fact that now the cost of energy, which is electricity or both electrical and thermal, is very high. So,
but in Malaysia, I mean, it's quite different in Malaysia because we are quite heavily subsidized in terms of energy. So that's another I can say is a pro and con when you subsidize and people don't really take care of that.
Makes sense. So when it's cheap, you don't want to try to save. I mean, that's there. That's there. So I think and again, I think your company has a product, or you have a product on like, which is around CMMS. And one of the things I wanted to say, before I go to my last question for this particular podcast, what are the challenges you're facing when it comes to enabling people to use CMMS?
Okay. Just like any other.
Even with
Yeah.
all that change,
Mhm.
conversations and stuff, but I'm sure you face certain on the ground challenges in
Correct.
implementation. What
Correct.
are those?
Correct. Mostly people think that technology is a silver bullet. So that will be the biggest and the most important thing that we face currently. I think
Mm,
that technology can solve a lot of their problem without having
mm,
to look at their fundamental issues, which is competency,
mm,
leadership, and so on.
mm,
So when we approach or being approached, we would like to set some awareness, some information, and we impart some
mm,
of our experience, knowledge to them also. Okay, this is not something that you buy and solve your problem entirely.
mm,
And key decision making for them is how actually tangible benefits that they can have. So this is the key challenges that we have in Malaysia. It's quite relatively new to a lot of people,
mm,
even for CMMS, even
mm,
for CAFM. They would like to know more and they would like to experience it and see it happen. And it will take like really long lead time for them to actually adopt to that technology, I can
mm.
say. Mhm.
And you've, I mean, I don't think you'll have to take the names, but are you seeing a lot of the incumbents or the new age startups which are doing a lot of work around CMMS and stuff globally also entering Malaysia? Is that happening, or it's still pretty much just the incumbents and the local players that are there in Malaysia right now?
Okay. The thing with CMMS, much of the operation is localized, so they aren't much foreign startups or foreign players that came into the space in Malaysia because it's
Mm,
merely driven by local processes, operation, and so on. So there's a lot of I know that there's a lot of companies also go into the areas where they wanted to help companies automate their process flow, automation, work operation, and so on.
mm,
But
mm.
it's good. It's good in a way. It keeps the soccer industry alive with a lot of more, uh,
I
I
mean,
can say, yeah,
makes it
diverse
makes
solution.
it
Yeah,
more competitive
yeah,
and stuff that's
yeah,
obviously there. So I think thanks so much, Zul, for it. I mean, so it probably brings me to my last question. One of the last questions,
yeah.
if you know,
You
this might.
mentioned it twice already.
Yes, I've mentioned it already. So that's why I'm probably correcting. Okay, this could be one of the
No, no,
last.
no, it's okay. Okay.
I don't promise you. Okay, what's your forecast for the industry for the coming year?
Okay, this is a
or
good.
or or what are the couple of things you're looking forward to?
Yeah, I really hope that I mean in specific Malaysia local context
Mm,
for the industry to move ahead, stop with the labeling whether it's I 4.0 SDG ESG. Yeah, yeah, I understand that some requirement and compliances need to be done, but let's go ahead with change, transformation, and starting with the organization and with people itself, because technology is just merely a tool. It's
true that.
basically to enhance the human participation in that industry, regardless of what industry you are in. Let's go
Perfect.
into that discussion.
Mm,
Okay,
mm,
that
mm.
will be my focus. It will be difficult in the next couple of years, but that's where most of the innovation happen actually. The difficult time push people to better ideas, better solutions, and so on.
No,
I'm really hopeful.
I couldn't agree more with you. I mean, I think, and I think, as you quite rightly said, this is probably not going to happen alone in 2023. In fact, this probably can be the sort of the guiding force forever. Because I think a lot of, and I again, a lot of people like us who probably have not like, or who've gone through those cycles, who've come from working with the people on the shop floor or actually doing it themselves, do realize and see it that technology is a mere enabler. It's a means to an end. It's not the end in itself. And I think if the industry at large could recognize, and when I say industry, absolutely right. So it's not just It's not just the FM asset owners and consultants and vendors. I think everyone put together, if they can realize that if we can find a way in which we can empower the blue collar workforce, help them make better decisions, help them be at more ease. I think there is this transformation which can then obviously truly come in the most inclusive manner. Yeah.
Just make the workplace much more better for the facility management team. That's the ultimate goal.
Yeah, but I think that's interesting, and but I think again when you look at and so this is not a question, but just a discussion with this thing. That's where I have my disagreements on when you look at workplace from the perspective of a white collar workforce, and when you look at the workplace from the perspective of the blue collar workforce,
different.
Is so very different. Now, when you look at the softwares that have been taken out, are largely for white collar workforce. Like I mean, you obviously have CMMS, but again, when you think of it, everyone says that, hey, we'll do digital transformation, we'll do data driven, but here you have people who don't have requisite data skills. How are you really enabling them to go for the next leap? So I think that's the biggest challenge. I mean, really, I mean, but I agree with you. If any organization that can solve for it is like miles ahead in this race to win the transformation, in that sense. But thanks, Zul. Like always, it's a pleasure talking to you. And as promised, I have no more questions. I have no more questions. So just to recap, so probably Malaysia is like no different to any other country in the similar space. A bit of pessimism, some early movers, a lot of opportunity, a lot of growth, and a lot of optimism to look forward to. And one inspiration that Zul gives us is that don't get lost in themes, don't get lost in words, don't get lost in nomenclature. Focus on what really needs to be turned around, making things better, and then whatever comes your way really comes your way. Now, that's it. Thank you so much, Zul, once again for your time. Pleasure to have you. Take care.
Same here. Okay, bye.